Hi, everyone. I'm Judith Walls. I'm a professor and chair for sustainability management at the Institute for Economy and Environment in the University of St. Gallen. I'm also this year's division chair for organizations in the natural environment. And I was asked by Nicholas to comment or contribute to this session on building an Anthropocene research community, which I think is a really important topic. I have to pre-record because I'm unfortunately not available next week. However, I wanted to sort of think through these three guiding questions that came from Nicholas and maybe stimulate some discussion around them. So let's start with the first one, which was, how does Anthropocene research differ from previous O&E research? Well, I mean, to some extent, I think it's a natural next step or an extension from previous O&E research. We've seen in the last 5-10 years, especially, quite an increase in research on topics like climate change for business within O&E, which of course is strongly linked to the era of the Anthropocene, where humans have become now so powerful in our role in how we affect the earth. So I think it's not necessarily that it's only different, but I do see maybe a progression of what O&E researchers have looked at. Traditionally, the O&E interest group, which later became a division, has really started more of the notion of a circular economy, thinking about especially natural environments, so pollution and waste and things like this, water, cleanliness. These types of topics seem to be really core earlier on. But I think this has now evolved from not only focusing on these core environmental topics, but really more an extension of that, which is the relationship between society and the natural environment. And so this is where I think we have seen a difference. And our world has also changed. Andy Hoffman often talks about these kind of waves of focus of companies, starting with kind of a more legal sort of mandatory approach of complying with environmental laws, but now sort of entering this fourth wave, this era of the Anthropocene, and we see how increasingly interconnected we are through our business, through our human activities with the natural environment. COVID-19 is an excellent example of this, that this is a disease that has likely resulted as a zoonotic disease. So it's come from animals. It's come from animals through contact with humans because we are placing pressure on biodiversity and animals are too close to us, or rather, we are too close to the animals. And so this has had tremendous effect, something that came and originated from the natural environment that really has had social implications, and it's a systemic thing. Now we are in a phase of really trying to curb human activity to control this environmental factor, and business, of course, is a key part of this. The second question was more to do with whether we should work within this capitalist system or whether we should replace capitalism. And, here I feel like we have to be pragmatic. As much as I, see some problems with the capitalist system and that this sort of attention on profit seeking has really created a lot of problems that we face right now with organizations in the natural environment, I do think that systems are very difficult to change and require enormous energy to shift. So I would say that we have to start within the capitalist system, but that we can try to transform it. And we can try to transform it in many ways. Businesses can sort of self-regulate and govern and try to transform from a values perspective for what is good for us as a society, what's good for business. We can regulate, or we can have an exogenous systemic shock. Again, COVID is a great example of this, where the entire system pretty much came to a halt, including our education system, because we could not go outside. So I think this is the kind of most extreme case of stopping the system and thinking about working in this system or with the capitalist system, which obviously was not super effective. We've seen a lot of jobs being lost through this process. A lot of industries shut down, except for a few key contributing factors. So I would say that is not the desired outcome, and we should take action early to transform business as much as we can and think about circularity of our economy, think about where we have impact on the natural environment, think about how we impact humans and the human relationship with the natural environment, and really creating these kind of businesses that hold these core universal values. I wrote a paper with Harry Triandis many years ago now, which looked at the 4 key truths that all humans hold. And one of them includes preservation of the natural environment. The others are things like well-being and health and longevity. All of us value these things. So if all of us value these things, we can get companies to set up in a way that respects these values. But we're not doing that right now. So I think that's what I'd like to see going forward. The third question was to do with what is the role of physical sciences in this? And actually, I think this is a really interesting question, because the physical science gives us the knowledge, the data. We know from physical science that, our emission curves, and the carbon dioxide in the air is going to continue to increase until a certain time, and then hopefully it will decrease if we curb our activities or change how we do things. And so this makes it possible for us to have informed science-based targets to achieve, and therefore our strategies and decision-making around this can be informed and should be informed by science, whatever the latest science is and knowledge is. Personally, I feel this has a ton of implications for business schools, for our role as educators rather than researchers. So right now, most business schools don't teach natural science. Why would they? But I think increasingly we need to introduce these core concepts of things like, what is the nitrogen cycle? What's the carbon cycle? How is water rotated around the earth? The fact that we only have 3% of fresh water in the earth, and most of it is stuck in glaciers, so there isn't much to go around. I think these are really, really important factors. Things like biodiversity loss and how rapidly this is happening and the pressure we're placing on the system. Having that knowledge allows us to think about businesses in a new way. And so if you are, for example, in agriculture or agri-commodities business, and you have knowledge on biodiversity, we can change the way that we grow things to increase the biodiversity, and we can preserve those areas of biodiversity that are still somewhat pristine, so that we can build resilience into our system. So these concepts are really, really important. This system dynamics or systems science, things like resilience, things like tipping points. These are really, really important concepts that we need to know about and that we need to educate our business students about, so that when people make decisions about businesses, they can keep these things in mind and think about whether we're going overboard. That's all that I'll say right now. I know there's going to be plenty of great discussion, and I will look at the video online once it's available at Academy. So bye from me, and enjoy the session.